Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. Yes, we are back. Yes, we did enjoy an extended international break. No, we were not still out celebrating Scotland reaching the World Cup, Phil. I was stuck in Poland with work and Amsterdam. And you've obviously just started your new job, and Calm still got his hectic uni and work schedule as well. So apologies, we didn't bring you a preview of the Hearts game, but we did confidently predict we would be back to discuss a victory. And here we are indeed, Phil.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe the lack of preview was a good luck charm. As much as we were confident of a win, maybe us in our very typical overconfident style, some might say, has maybe aided us by keeping the expectations slightly lower. But yeah, as you say, it's lovely to come back and discuss a win off of, as you say, is what has been quite a fun week being a Don supporting Scotland fan.
It is because, of course, not only did Scotland qualify for the World Cup when we've been away, but also the Dons retained the Masters trophy as well. We attended that for the RTG Christmas night out. Thank you very much to Rob Wicks and the team at Tekka for that, sorting us out with that. But another great night in Russell Anderson turning into prime Erling Haaland and Constantine and Johnny Hayes, throwing it back with some great memories watching them. And Lee Miller as well. I can never get tired of watching Lee Miller scoring goals for Aberdeen.
Yeah, there were certainly some brilliant strikers on display. Not all of them, obviously, out and out strikers, as you mentioned. Russell Anderson
Yeah.
winning the joint Golden Boot. But yeah, no, a really fun evening, and you and Callum joked about um, asking to watch that every week from the Dons. So hopefully, as we say, today is maybe the step in the right direction of that. Maybe minus Russell Anderson at centre forward.
Yeah, no, exactly. Of course, we are recording this only about 3 hours after full time. Um, Phil slightly hungover, me not actually hungover for once. But 3 points is the main thing to talk about on this week's show, and obviously we're also going to be building up to that Europa Conference League game against Noah. But I think going into the game today, Phil, it really did feel like a must win, not only because it would be great to get one over on Hearts, but because of the results on Saturday as well. It felt like the top six were potentially beginning to get away from us. Obviously, the result now has seen us drawn level with Dundee United on points, but finally put a little bit of a gap to St Mirren and Livingston below us. Obviously, St Mirren suffering that late defeat, and given now our run of fixtures come up against three of the bottom four, I think it was really important to go out and get that 3 points, and it was job done.
Yeah, like you say, I think the felt like a must-win game really because of the sort of momentum side of it from our perspective. Wanting to try and get on that run, especially coming up to that busy sort of European schedule we've got between now and the end of December. So try and get some points on the board, and against obviously Hearts, who have been doing the same as us and flying high towards the top of the league early doors. Always nice to get a win against them and continue their poor run up here at Pittodrie. But yeah, I was saying before the game, I would have taken grinded out 1-0 win because it's something we've struggled to do so much, particularly this season. Try to just hold on to, keep yourselves in that one goal lead and do a bit of the dirty work. I think it's safe to say for the most part we did today, which was positive. As nice as it would have been to maybe try and put them to the sword a little bit, and we maybe had one or two chances to do so, but yeah, we'll certainly take that performance today.
Yeah, and I think for me, the biggest takeaway from today, aside from the 3 points, was the level of fight and performance that was put in. Probably the best home performance domestically of the season, and close to possibly the most complete performance. Yes, maybe we could have been a bit more clinical, but I think defensively we were more than tested by Hearts. I'm sure on another day a couple of their chances would have found the back of the net, but it wasn't to be their day. It never seems to be at Pittodrie, as well as their run without a victory up here will now extend to 10 years, which is quite remarkable stuff when you think about it. But I suppose as well, looking at the team news when it was announced, Jesper Karlsson missing out from the squad altogether as he was attending a family funeral this weekend. obviously hope he's back for Thursday and involved because he is a crucial player. It felt that the likes of Topi Keskinen coming in would need to kind of step up and perform. And I think, when you look at how we started the game in particular, it really felt like we came out with a point to prove.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right to say the performance is one of the best in terms of league performances at Pittodrie this season. I think it was the first time we really kind of looked like more of a coherent unit. I know that there's been a few weeks we've came on and maybe sort of labelled some criticism towards a team of individuals. So um, certainly looked like a team that were all in behind one sort of cause. Like you said, I think the fight and the ability to win the second balls again. How often have we come on and said that games like Hearts and Hibs and around that sort of field of teams at home are won and lost on the second ball, and usually we're second best to them. I thought today we were a lot better. Particularly that midfield too. I thought Adil Ashish really impressed me. One of his better performances in an Aberdeen jersey.
Probably the
Um,
best.
yeah, probably his best. And I mean, I think between him and Lazatic getting the south stand and the red shed going whenever there was, maybe lulls in play or a big challenge maybe went flying in, or David Dickinson having his car crash performance as ever. Try to get the fans on side and get in behind something. I thought it was a really really good team performance. Like you say, I think when the lineup came out, I'll admit I was a little bit wary of our left hand side. Armstrong and Jensen not the quickest, and I was really worried they were going to have Kizaridis sort of running down towards them for 90 minutes and struggle to cope. But yeah, I thought really really solid team performance, and Jensen and Armstrong both putting in solid performances as well.
Yeah, I think it's hard to fault anybody in red today. And funny you highlighting the referee's performance and calling it a car crash. I'm surprised he didn't book himself for simulation because that was an excellent tumble he took in the second half. Although the way he managed to just spring back up was equally impressive. Interesting though, you speak about the midfield and having a good game. I guess for me that was also the nervousness area. Don't even know if that makes sense, but you know what I mean. Um, how that would fare, given yes, they excelled in Larnaca, that three of Polvara, Oshish, and Armstrong, but probably the biggest surprise was how well Oshish excelled as that deeper lying midfielder. Um, Everyone probably always expects it to be Stuart Armstrong, but we see the best out of him linking with the front man, obviously Lazatic being that one today. But I don't know if it's the fact that he, like you, Phil, recently shaved his head and got rid of the locks, Oshish, but it's unlocked some potential in that deeper lying midfielder. As someone said, Drew, on Twitter to me, maybe where we've seen the best out of Leighton Clarkson, we saw Oshish get the best out of him in that deeper role.
Yeah, like you say, my influence is unmatched for Buzzcut. Buzzcut winter between Adil Ashish and Timothy Chalamet. We're all rocking Buzzcuts now. But no, I thought the midfield worked well, and I think Adil maybe isn't going to get as much praise as Dante's maybe going to get on the back of that performance. Um, but like you say, I thought his fight in that deeper position was brilliant. Similarly, running for the full 90. I mean, I was impressed even when Clarkson came on that Ashish seemed to be the one that was, making those overlapping runs to try and take the ball into the corner. And, you would have thought it was him that had come off the bench with sort of 5-10 minutes to go. So, yeah, really, really impressed with him today. Like you said, there's not really anyone on that pitch that started that game you could kind of throw any sort of criticism at. And I think it is that sort of playing as a unit that really shone through.
Yeah, and I suppose obviously we've already highlighted the success Scotland had in midweek qualifying for that World Cup, and obviously young players will be seeing this as an opportunity to jump on the plane next summer, and our defence is possibly where any chance of a Scotland call-up is going to come, unless Kevin Nisbet really pulls his finger out. And I probably throw Nicky Devlin hat into the ring as well, because leading the line, leading the team, I should call it, and another good performance there at right centre back. But Jack Milne, absolutely outstanding today. A player that, I'll hold my hand up. Yes, I criticised him at the start of the season and I thought it looked nervous, but now that he's had that partnership with Knooster. It's building week in, week out. It's keeping clean sheets as well. They're balancing off each other perfectly. One when one goes, the other one stays back. They're both happy to head things constantly for 90 minutes, and I'm sure if he keeps performing, he'll be chapping on the door of Steve Clarke asking for a chance. And also young Dylan Lobban as well. Maybe not his best game today, and I'm not being overly critical. I think his legs were going in the second half, and that's maybe not to be seen as a surprise, given, of course, his involvement with the under 21s as well. So it is a lot of games at a higher level than he's been used to recently, and it maybe did catch up with him a little bit today. Of course, the weather wasn't the kindest at the start of the game as the teams made their way onto the pitch, and he did have a bit of a torrid time against Hearts' pacey front line, and at times for me struggled to get past Harry Milne. I'm sure another young Scottish player looking to next summer, trying to impress as well. But, you know, Scotland qualifying for the World Cup and these players wanting to play for an opportunity to go to America, Canada, and Mexico can only benefit Aberdeen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's maybe slightly too soon for Dylan to get that sort of senior call up for the World Cup. Obviously, it depends on how the season pans out between now and May, or whenever the cut-off is for the World Cup squad, whenever that might be. So I think it may be slightly too soon for him. Like you say, again, I thought he had a very solid performance, getting stuck in where he could, trying to get himself up the park. I think it was a case of, I would probably say two very traditional players in the way that I look at Lobban and Harry Milne. I feel like they're very sort of, Lobban likes to hit the byline. He likes to try and get himself forward. Harry Milne, a very traditional, no nonsense, left wing back who's came up through the lower leagues as well. He's played experienced players, albeit probably past their prime in his time at Cove. He probably knows a lot of tricks of the trade already, that a lot of fullbacks his age might not if they've just played top level football. So I do think he maybe struggled more on the attacking end. I think certainly his defensive contributions on that right hand side were to be applauded. But I think you're right to point out Nicky Devlin and Jack Milne for possible Scotland call ups. I mean, another great game from Jack Milne, really growing into quite the sort of accomplished centre half. Felt like anything that came up he was going to head away or sweep up quite comfortably. And I think the benefit for the likes of himself and Devlin are they can play multiple positions. Milne could, you probably wouldn't preference it, but, he could go out to that right back position. He could go into holding midfield. And I think when you're playing in a World Cup that's thousands of miles away and you can't just have somebody jump on a 4-hour flight over to mainland Europe if the squad picks up an injury, having players like Milne, like Devlin, similarly to the likes of Ross McCrory, who can all play across a couple of positions to give you that utility and free up squad spots elsewhere, it would be something logical for Steve Clarke to look at. And I think, going off the performances he's put in, even prior to the World Cup, rolling around, he should probably be knocking on the door of that Scotland squad. Sort of when you look at the centre half options that we do have at our disposal, and the fact they are sort of aging and, more chance of them picking up those sort of little injuries, as we saw before the Denmark game with Hanley having to step in.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say and shite like Grant Hanley, but well done for refraining on that. But no, I think, yeah, it is certainly going to be something to watch, not just from an Aberdeen point of view, but for those of a Scotland persuasion to see how Scottish football players, react now and try and step up and stake a claim. And it was really interesting, actually, talking about staking claims was Jimmy Tilleen's post-match comments about how some of the players that played today haven't, had the minutes of maybe what they would like. Leighton Clarkson's obviously been the one that's been most well documented. Again, since we last sat down to speak, it's kind of come out that he may move in January, which for me would be disappointing because I do believe he is a very quality player that we would benefit from seeing within this squad. But Topi Keskinen is also maybe a player that's hoped to have more opportunity in Jesper Karlsson's absence today. He grabbed that opportunity with two hands. Do I think he will still start on Thursday? Probably not. But in that opportunity today, not only did he put in the performance, he went on to grab that goal in the first to top off what was really a great all-round performance, but also for me in particular, his first half performance was excellent, and it was a very good finish too.
Yeah, it was a very, very well taken goal from Topi. And like you say, it's sort of what we're wanting to see more from him. Admittedly, he's not got that chance on the left as much as he would maybe like, which gives him the chance to produce goals like that. But certainly, I mean, outside of the goal, I thought his work rate was super. He's occasionally a player that can be maybe unfairly at times criticised for his lack of contribution to the team overall. And I do think there are points today where you can see his decision making is still, needing to brush up a little bit. But his ability to chase everything down, I think it's a tough job being in that Aberdeen front line at the moment. The press still sometimes feels like it's lacking at points, and you're having to do a lot of work on your own. I think Topi and Lazatic did very well with that today. But Topi particularly getting himself about, throwing himself into things, and really, busting a gut to try and get something out of the game. And I think it was maybe that responsibility to be that sort of more creative outlet higher up the pitch that he maybe flourished on a little bit and took that responsibility in his stride.
Yeah, and also, we saw in Larnaca the pace that he had to burn, and I think his goal was another example of the pace that he has to burn. Holding that line, I was like, please don't be offside, please don't be offside. And yes, he maybe gets a little bit of a break of the ball, but Hearts seemed to be getting that all day. In terms of the way things were falling for them. And I thought he also had a chance before the goal where I was like, just hit it with your right foot. But he wanted to cut back in onto his left. He didn't take that opportunity. So when that one came, I was like, please just hit it, please just hit it. And thankfully it found the bottom corner. But he's a player that, hasn't had that opportunity. And I was having this discussion on Thursday morning with a guy, Stuart, who was on my flight on Wednesday night that got cancelled halfway to Aberdeen. We got turned around at Newcastle, diverted all the way back to Amsterdam, much to some people's frustration, also some people's delight, because one of the diversion options was Prestwick. And we were discussing Topi Keskinen. I think Stuart was actually annoyed that we hadn't put an episode out so he could fall asleep to it. But given we're 17 minutes in, it might be interesting to see if he's still awake at this point. But we said that Topi Keskinen, I personally felt, is being weighed down by his price tag. And he said, well, look, if he was that's an Aberdeen price tag anymore, and he's probably out with that target. So you have to look at it two ways. He's an affordable player for Aberdeen to go and get and develop. But, I thought actually today that he actually lived up to his price tag for once in his all-round play. He wasn't that, frustrating player in that final third, and he looked threatening, and I thought his tracking back was good as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've spoken about that before, about sort of Topi's price tag maybe sort of influencing how we view his performances, rightly or wrongly. So, I mean, I know that, that sort of ballpark, whatever it was, just shy of $1 million fee that we paid Helsinki to get him, in the grand scheme of things now is not a big fee. But I think for, the likes of us two, it's always going to be a big fee for Aberdeen. I mean, we've spent most of it not seeing anything close to £1 million. And when we did, it was Ronald Fernandez of all people. So there is that sort of expectation that when the club does spend money, that, you've got to have the finished product off the bat almost. And I think it will take a long time for that to get out of our mindset. But no, certainly I would say one of his best performances sort of for us. Certainly lived up to the bill of that price tag, and hopefully it's that sort of platform, again, we say it all the time, that platform that you can springboard off of. I mean, Thursday will be interesting, whether he does play. I think the lack thereof, I suppose, of substitutes, although we made all five, but, leaving it till the 80th minute, again, I don't know if that was, again, an eye to Thursday, just with the, the potential lack of bodies we've got to rotate that squad. So whether Topi does get the nod on Thursday again, obviously will depend on whether Carlson's back in amongst training. But certainly, yeah, you're hoping to see those sort of performances from him and see him contributing more on that goal and assist front.
I mean, it's also not where I said, I don't see him retaining his starting place on Thursday. It wouldn't even be the worst thing if he does start and you get an hour out of him and then you bring on Jesper Karlsson for the last half hour, because he's a quality player and he has pace. I know we're going to come on to it in a little bit, but obviously Noah have got the travel coming over here, and they played their game yesterday, well, Saturday, the time most of you are going to be listening or watching this, with 10 men, and drew 2-2. So hopefully there's a bit of tired legs within that Noah side when they come to Pittodrie, albeit I'm sure we'd have hoped for a little bit better conditions in today's game to avoid a little bit of tiredness. And it did feel, was there maybe one eye on Thursday, as you say, with the reluctance to make changes earlier? And I was getting very wary that Hearts were growing into the game in that second half when we weren't making the changes, and how many players were being kind of maybe saved for Thursday. The one maybe I was surprised to see get as long as he did was Stuart Armstrong, in particular. But again, in terms of Thursday, um, Lazetic likely to lead the line, but today I thought did a good job, albeit another game where our strikers haven't scored, which I think is also really important to see the midfield continuing to chip in with goals. I saw that tweet from Gus Toz as we were speaking before we started recording, that the Dundee United goalkeeper has still scored more goals this season than our strikers in the league. So I'm sure that will be a frustration, but in terms of his all-round play, I thought Lazetic was good. I did agree a little bit with Willie Miller that at times Lazetic is more interested in having a fight with the defenders, but he causes a nuisance. And I do think, again, I know we're still more speaking on this weekend, but with Thursday in mind, that will be a benefit. And again, on today, I thought that fight that he brought to Kent and the rest of the Hearts backline allowed the space, whether it be for Oshish, Keskinen, Milanovic later on in the game, as well to benefit from, because he was physically wearing that Hearts defence down.
Yeah, I mean, I think the striker position in this Aberdeen squad with our current sort of tactical setup is a horrible job to have. I think you're so isolated so much of the time, and I think that's why Lazetic has been tending to get the nod more than anything. Because, like you say, he does bring that bit of fight. I somewhat agree with Willie Miller's comments, but I also think Lazetic is kind of, I guess, punished for being that sort of target striker, as a lot of strikers that are the same sort of build as him are. I can recall multiple occasions where the likes of Kent or Steinbinder had their arms all over him, and nothing was given. But the minute he leans into someone, it's instantly blown up by David Dickinson. And I feel, it must get frustrating after a while. You feel like you can't do anything. But like you said, I think he led the line superbly. I think in terms of his work rate, obviously lacking a little bit of service. And when he did get on the ball, it's that age-old Aberdeen thing. If you're looking up and there's only maroon shirts or, well, whatever colour shirts are, aren't they, black shirts in front of you. So I do think it is probably a tough task, but he puts himself about. There's no doubts that he's got quality. And hopefully, like I say, if we can just kind of keep on building, and getting towards that sort of more finished product in terms of our attacking side of football, hopefully more goals will come from him. But certainly wouldn't be disappointed to see him lead the line on Thursday. But again, as you say, in those conditions and the amount of running that he did do, it'll be interesting to see what sort of shape his legs will be in come match day.
Yeah, and I think as well that the partnership and the understanding, I know something that Andy Skinner's been speaking about when he's been on the podcast this season, in terms of the front three needs time to click, but there seems to be quite a good level of understanding and intellect maybe from Lazetic when it's, making the run for a Stuart Armstrong diagonal, and certainly a good understanding between him and Aushish as well. So it's there, it's developing. It still needs to develop fully. And again, throwing it back to Jimmy Tilleen's post-match comments where he says, we've taken the step in the right direction today. It's still, we're still working on things defensively. We're pretty much there. The midfield, we're still tweaking the front area. We've scored, but we still need to take steps to make it better. And I think that's a given. But we're picking up wins right now. Our form in the league, it's 13 points. We're sitting third in the form table. And I think, again, that's the interesting thing that Jimmy Tillene is still maybe suffering from, is our league position doesn't really reflect the form, because other teams have been picking up points. We pick up 3 points a day and we don't even move up a place. We've drawn level on points with Dundee United, but we're now, for me, can look up. We don't need to be constantly looking and being like yesterday when Livingston were still drawing at Ibrox, being like, oh, for fuck's sake, they're gonna close, and obviously that's who we play next in the league. Now gives us an excellent opportunity. I think it will be to go 8 points clear. I think that's right. Maybe even more from Livingston if we go and win down there, which we know won't be easy. But it should now, that win today, give us and the fans, hopefully, the mentality to start looking up the table rather than constantly behind us, which I do think, rightly or wrongly, has been plaguing far too many Aberdeen fans this season and allowed more of the negativity to creep in than we would have liked to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, sort of top of the show, all I wanted was to be able to grind out a 1-0 today. As nice as a 5-6-0 against Hearts would be, the ability to just close a game out, has eluded us at times. We saw it in the Motherwell game, a really cheap goal to concede. And thankfully today, it didn't really look like we were going to be conceding any cheap goals. I think that's down to the back three, back five as a whole, really, all doing their jobs impeccably. And like you say, a win against Livingston would take us 9. I did go and just consult the league table there. Be 9 points clear of them, should we get the win down there. And it is just a case of bit by bit building. I've said it every week on the podcast, and I feel like I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but every win like this should really be the springboard to go on and, try and, I'm not expecting us to go on an unbeaten run for 12 games again, but, stringing a few wins, the odd draw here and there, and just, ideally clean sheets as well. I mean, I think clean sheets will do a world of good for this team. And yeah, like you say, hopefully it's a case of, I say, looking up and not looking down from this point onwards.
And I think, even as much as I hope today is a springboard, to use your word there, for Thursday, take that out of the equation. It should be a springboard domestically. Again, going back to what I said there about the teams that we're playing now coming up are all teams below us. I think in order it's Livingston, St Mirren, and then Dundee, and then it'll be Kilmarnock if I'm right after that. And they're on a terrible run of form just now. I suppose actually the interesting thing with them will be whether Kettlewell's still on the job by the time they come up north. So before we have to play Celtic again, those are games really we should be winning. Especially, well, Dundee always seems a given, 3 points. And then St Mirren and Kilmarnock at home again, we should be winning that. Yes, those games, Kilmarnock and Livingston, are going to come off the back of European fixtures. How do we handle that? But hopefully we've shown signs today with squad rotation, potentially depth as well, that we have the quality to come off the bench. And if we are going to change that, I know we've maybe discussed this in the summer, that European team to the domestic team, we can handle the run of games that are going to come up, because I think that's actually now us midweek weekend right up until Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. We're midweek weekend right the way up to Celtic, 21st December.
Well, don't blame us for having a week off, not previewing the Hearts game then.
Yeah, exactly. And then even then, we've got another midweek on a Tuesday night down at Hibs just before the turn of the year. So it's a jam-packed schedule. I mean, it always is when you're in Europe and you come to November, December. It always clogs up like this. But, I think the players like I say, that collective unit today for me was the biggest takeaway that I was pleased with, and I think the players really need to kind of hold on to that in a way. I mean, it's the only way we are going to springboard ourselves. If we come Thursday night, even looking away from domestic football, and we go back to 11 individuals on the pitch try to do something, it's gonna fall apart at the seams again, and then you're effectively back to square one. So I'm hoping that we've ground out this win, we've got the clean sheet, the players seemed ecstatic at full time.
Mhm.
The celebrations, and I think purely just from the effort that was put in from a lot of them was superb to see. Um, and hopefully that this is, like I say, where we build from, and try and just hold on to that mentality. And whether that's the influence of Lutz right off the bat, coming in and changing the mentality, we'll never know. But hopefully this is where we're going.
And I think you're right to highlight that cohesion and unity that was there in the team today. And as you pointed out, Oshish and Lazatic, really enjoying it and giving it up to the fans, trying to get them to keep going. Devlin as well seemed to absolutely love it at full time. But mm, that's probably the first time in a while we've seen that unity and togetherness, something that was obviously being accused of certainly not being there, and whether Jimmy Talina potentially lost the dressing room, or players were maybe playing as individuals rather than a team. So that was great to see. But for me, on the back of that was the togetherness of the fans with the players, because that second half was a slog at times. I think it's fair to say a little bit backs to the wall, and we've not even spoken about the excellent block from Jack Milne, which was, I mean, I didn't really realize how good it was until seeing it back when I got back from the game. But after the goal, I think it was the South Stand. I don't know if it was your section or Section S that started the stand free, which then the Red Shed joined in. But the last 10 minutes, instead of the Red Shed, starting Hearts Are Falling Apart with 10 minutes to go, it was the Come On You Reds and all the different Aberdeen songs to encourage the players. There was the encouragement, the backing, and the unity from, at times it felt like all four stands was with the players rather than slagging off Hearts, which for me in a game of that magnitude and how tight it was is much more enjoyable and easier for fans to get behind than just winding Hearts fans up. That can wait till the referee's blowing his full time whistle.
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of sitting with my head in my hands when the Hearts Are Falling Apart chant started early doors. I was thinking, oh no, this is going to come back to bite us, isn't it? Just by the pure, I suppose, run that we'd been on for majority of the season, it would seem very Aberdeen to immediately concede about a minute after. Um, so it was good to see everybody, back in the club. We had our shithouse moment with Topi Keskinen knee sliding towards the away section. That was enough. That was enough for me until full time. So yeah, no, like I said, I think the buy-in from everyone as well. I think leading up to this sort of, I suppose, crunch fixture really in terms of our European campaign, and hopefully it builds on to that sort of rock and Pittodrie on Thursday night.
It doesn't. I suppose, I think we've covered a lot of today's game. I don't really know how much more we can discuss on it. I mean, given the magnitude of the 3 points and the momentum it builds in, because it really is, as you say, Thursday night, a huge, huge game at Pittodrie. And hopefully, I think it'd be great to see Pittodrie sell out on Thursday, because a win against the Armenian champions would really put the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of our qualification hopes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if we fail to win on Thursday, I think it's probably dead in the water. I think Strasbourg are going to be a very, very hard team to beat. Not saying it's impossible, but when you looked when the fixtures first came out with how tough our draw was, you were kind of earmarking Noah as the one where you were kind of more expecting, I suppose, maybe is a strong word, but
Yeah,
expecting 3 points to come
strong, but
from
I
with.
think it's strong, but I think fair and correct to assume most Aberdeen fans are expecting 3 points against a team from Armenia.
Yes, but then again, it's that age-old thing of European football, and teams that come from, like Armenia seem to just be full of some of the most technical footballers you'll ever see for one reason or another. So I think it'll be an interesting game, and like you say, hopefully it's a loud and full Pittodrie that kind of powers us on a little bit. Because I think there will be spells where we probably sit without the ball for a while, and much like the second half today, will maybe feel like a bit of a slog.
And I suppose as well, yes, you mentioned the technical players that they might have, but also filled with a lot of international players, primarily from the Armenian national team, which is maybe why it caught up a little bit with them at the weekend. But also their goalkeeper plays for the Democratic Republic of Congo. Saved a penalty at the weekend, but also saved two in their playoff victory over Nigeria in the penalty shootout. So I think they go on to play Bolivia for a right to qualify for the World Cup. So, a, a big presence, I'm sure, in goal, and more than capable of pulling off some good saves. But this this tie really is the onus has got to be on us to come out and be the dominant team, because as you say, Strasbourg won't be easy to beat. We could still get a draw, but if we want to qualify, this has to be the game that we win, because it then takes the pressure effectively off the Strasbourg game. We could, I suppose, you know, get a draw, and then it would come down to, if we don't draw against Strasbourg, a winner takes all trip to Prague, potentially, depending how the next two game weeks go. But I was reading the Red Redemption book, obviously, that's now out, Ryan Crombie, on the last episode. And in one of the chapters, Jimmy Tillene spoke about, the step by step learnings that this team is going to have, and how each league game we learnt from, each cup game we learnt from. And it, when I was reading that part of the book, it brought me back to his comments after Athens, and how the players are going to learn from it. Yeah, we've learned the hard way. We then saw that in Larnaca. We'd learned our lesson, didn't set up as open, and we got a valuable point. I just wonder how much now we'll have also learnt from today's victory over Hearts, but also that Larnaca game, to take into Thursday to hopefully get that European victory.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's something that we've labelled at Jimmy from our perspective on this show, that he does have to take these lessons and learn from them. We have seen time and time again that that's maybe not always the case, and the same issues do rear their ugly head. But on viewing of this season in isolation, it appears that we're moving in that direction. I think today was the prime example. Hearts were very similar, in my opinion, to Hibs when they came up here, and the way that they set up and the way that they were trying to play. And I feel like we knew how to nullify that, and I think we did an excellent job in doing so. I think Hearts' injury struggles probably aided us in that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only play who's in front of you, and I think that's kind of how we've got to treat this European campaign. I mean, I know that we've had the draw from hell, and I know that I've already put the weighty expectation on a win on Thursday night, but you can only take it game by game and see what happens. I suppose for us, the best case scenario is hoping that Prague are already qualified come the final game, and maybe put out a bunch of 16-year-old kids, maybe missing a leg each, perhaps, and we can go and smash them 5-0 and qualify. But you can never tell. I mean, I know that I've already written off the Strasbourg game as well, but I'd also already written off the Shakhtar game when they beat Pittodrie, and again, that was probably one of our best performances categorically this season.
I think as well, Thursday is not even about improving the goal difference for me. It's just about getting that point. I suppose in terms of if we're writing off the Strasbourg game, it will be about not ruining our goal difference any further, because that is going to be the thing, is that we'll end up going to Prague winning and going out on goal difference in classic Aberdeen fashion. But obviously we have to do the job on Thursday. Interesting you speaking about setups there, how Hearts set up. I thought actually Hearts were quite good at hitting us on the break. Today their transition from back to fourth was impressive. albeit their finishing was far less. How do you think Noah come into this game and try and approach it? I know we're not exactly Armenian football experts, let alone Noah experts. Although I can't help myself now, but the weather would have definitely be suited to Noah Ark. Um, do you think they set up defensively because they've got the points on the board already? An impressive victory over Rijeka in match day 1. I think they drew match day 2, and then a defeat last time out. So, a point wouldn't be the worst result for them on Thursday.
No, and I mean, from a Don's perspective, hopefully the goals fly in like Noah's Ark as well, in two by
Two by
twos.
two.
But
Yes.
but no, I think like I say, I can't sit here and say that I watch Armenian football week in week out, mainly because I'm not that sad. But
You mean you haven't done your research for this episode?
Get the highlight reel out, Glenn. Get the highlight reel out. But no, having had a look through their squad, obviously a lot of players mishmashed from all over. A notable number of Portuguese players for some strange reason. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play. I mean, I think, like you say, for them having those points on the board is equally as valuable as us having a point on the board. And I think they'll be coming here to potentially try and defend that and hit us on the break, which I don't think will come as any real surprise. And I think European teams tend to be like that when they're sort of from these sort of nations.
Mm-hmm.
And frustratingly for us, they tend to be quite good at it as well.
More frustratingly, we tend to be quite bad at breaking teams down that do that.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I think it'll be a tough one. And like I said, I think there will be points in the game on Thursday where it'll feel like a slog, where they're really holding the ball and popping it around, and it looks like a training game for them at times. And I think we've just got to weather that storm a bit like we did the sort of final 5 minutes today. We did sort of weather the Hearts' pressure, when they'd sort of made a lot of changes towards the top end of the pitch.
Weathered the storm quite literally and metaphorically at times today. And I did wonder if, getting that North Sea wind might disrupt Noah if the weather was as atrocious on Thursday night, but they're probably used to the cold, so that's probably not a difference. In terms of the midfield, do you think it's same again on Thursday, or does Graham Shinnie come into the reckoning having not played today?
I don't know. I feel like potentially just to give us that extra little bit of, I suppose, bite in that midfield, and maybe with the amount of minutes that Adele played today, potentially looking to bring him off the bench to be a bit more of that creative outlet should we need it to try and break them down if the game's still 0-0 or 1-0, whatever the score might be. Potentially come on and try and unlock the defence a little bit. I feel like Dante Povara, for me, I think, has got to stay in that midfield. Again, really good today. I think just his ability to try and get us going forward, and take the ball in tight spaces is something I think we'll really need on Thursday night. Because one thing I think we failed to mention was how good his Topi Keskinen was for his goal against Hearts to swing it into the channel for him. So I feel like there may just be the one change. Again, I think that's purely just from a minute management perspective. I'm just not sure if she'll be able to do another slog like that for 90 minutes and have any legs left. But whether it's Shinnie that comes in, I don't know. Maybe Clarkson, if you're looking for that sort of like for like in terms of having a more creative player there, and if he is to fill that same role of getting on the ball a little bit deeper, it would potentially suit him. And as I've said, if Noah are sitting in a little bit and you're wanting midfielders to try and break them down, Clarkson and Povara is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, and I think that's where I would be leaning towards more. Being against Graham Shinnie starting is if they are going to sit in. We want those creative players. We want those attacking-minded players, and I don't think a midfield of Shinnie and Armstrong offers that. That's not saying that Stuart Armstrong's not attacking-minded, because I think we can all see that he is. I just think that we need more legs in midfield than two guys I was going to say the wrong side of 30, and I'm only fucking 33, but in footballing senses, the wrong side of 30. But Leighton Clarkson would be an interesting one to see him come in for Sheesh, certainly in from the cold of the Aberdeen bench. I think, yeah, I would say there'd be two changes for me for Thursday night. One of that midfield three will change in my mind, and the other being, I think Carlson comes in for Topi. Um, Not that Topi did anything wrong to merit not starting. I just think you've got to be starting your better or best players. And Jesper, for me, is a better player and offers more consistent quality in that final third than we've seen from Topi Keskinen right now. Um, which is which is a bit harsh to say given the quality and the fact that he proved to be the match winner today. But I think it's really important in a team or playing a team that we suspect will be stuffy is to keep that creativity in midfield and keep the ball moving, like we did at times today, and that allowed the space to be created for those explosive wingers to exploit space in behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you say, I think it's potentially harsh on the back of the Hearts game for Topi, but I think over the piece he has shown a lack of decision making and my pet peeve and an inability to just hit the thing from 18 yards at times, which I feel like you're never short of with Jesper Karlsson. I feel like he'd hit it from Kenny McLean level distances if he could. So yeah, I think there's no doubts, and I think the fact that he is only here for a finite amount of time. We're not going to see him past his loan.
Mhm.
That there is more of a chance of him starting on Thursday night. But I think you're right to highlight earlier potentially even Topi as that. I suppose I'm going to say the Shady Mo role
Mm.
of coming on against a tired fullback and showing that pace, which seems to have suddenly appeared out of nowhere after not seeing it for the best part of a few months.
But
Um,
funnily enough, the might be the reason why we haven't seen it is because he's so fucking tired from playing football all the time.
well,
The fact that
exactly.
he's now been afforded a bit of a rest, yes, with Aberdeen and also with the national team, I think you're right. The Finnish Shady Mo can come on and be that impact player on Thursday night.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe something that we've been sort of short of this season. In all honesty, I mean, the amount of times you're looking at a game that we're maybe trailing, or it's still really tight, and you just need that sort of injection of pace and someone who's a bit more direct off the bench. And I feel like we just don't really have that at our disposal at the moment.
Mm.
Bilalovic maybe falls into that bracket after his cameo at Tannadice, but obviously not seen him. I was kind of surprised we didn't see him today, in all
Mm.
honesty. But yeah, having that injection of pace, I think, especially when it comes to Europe, um, when you're playing teams that are equally as laggy as you are at times, is a game changer.
Yeah, and I'll also put Milanovic in that category as well, although he was a bit frustrating for me today, didn't kind of get beyond the man when he could have. And I still think we're yet to see the best of him. But again, he's another player that falls into that category of his country are at a World Cup. Surely he's going to be a player with a point to prove and wanting to book a seat on that plane. So could he also be the Australian Shady Mo and cause an impact on Thursday night? I guess that remains to be seen. Defensively, I don't think any changes are needed. I'm sure Jack and Mats will continue to head away anything that comes their way. Obviously, for me, potential concerns around Devlin. I know he took a couple of heavy knocks towards the end of the game, but I'm sure he'll put himself in cotton wool and be ready to go again on Thursday. And then Dylan, yes, looked a bit leggy, but you've got Gyamfi, Malloy, who I thought did a great job when he came on, um, as capable backups to come in if needed. And I thought Jensen was solid again today. Nothing kind of out of the ordinary apart from I think it was his cross in the first half where he cut it back instead of drilled it across the face. No, that would have been in the second half because it was in front of me. Yeah, second half. I was a bit annoyed that he went for the cutback when I thought drilling it across would have been the better option, but solid on both sides today. So again, defensively, I think is the only part of the pitch where I'm fairly confident, not only in the team, but there won't be any changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the partnership that's been built across, I suppose, in terms of an entire back six between Mitov, the central defenders, and the wing backs, that relationship seems to kind of all be clicking into place now. Um, so yeah, I'm with you. The only change I potentially see is with one of the wing backs maybe changing, whether it is Jensen or Lobben, whoever I suppose needs the rest, or potentially Jimmy thinks maybe isn't um, up for the game. Is the only place I would see. But yeah, I think for you, I think the the midfield will be the most interesting one. I think seeing who obviously we're predicting we're going to keep the same shape in tactics, but obviously I think whoever starts in that midfield too, I think will really be telling as to how we're approaching the game on Thursday night.
Yeah, and that's why I really hope it's not Graham Shinney in there, because I hope we're approaching the game with the same mindset that we approached today's game, positive from the start, getting at Noah and looking to cause not only them problems but get the early goal, because the atmosphere at European Nights at Pittodrie is always good. I don't actually know what ticket sales are looking like for Thursday night, but if we can get a full house and we can get an early goal and get the crowd really going, hopefully then that momentum and feel good factor just continues, and yeah, we rock the boat. Sorry, I couldn't help myself one more time.
Trust you, Glenn. Trust you.
Al, you've got to end it somehow, and that's the way I chose to. Sorry as again that we weren't back. I'm not going to apologise for terrible puns, but we will be back reviewing the action from Thursday night and previewing the trip to Livingston this weekend. It's been good to be back. It's been good once again to beat Hearts at home and that positivity. So enjoy your week. Let's see what it holds. We'll see you next time on Red Tinted Glasses.